it's nothing like the fact that these two men are going to have to stand before God one day and both give an account of their lives and how they have stewarded things, and
Right,
this
Bert.
relationship being one of them. And trust me, this is an issue that's not going to go away before eternity. This is an issue that is going to have to be recounted before Jesus one day.
We just finished talking about the first two steps that we know are moving forward now in the North American Mission Board versus McRaney case. And the first was discovery, and that's definitely moving forward now. Second was request for documents, and we've talked about the kind of documents that need to come. And if you hadn't seen that, go back and watch that first video, and we'll link that right up here in a moment, or at the end card, do that. And so that brings us to basically the third step in the process that we know is happening now, and that's the interrogatory questions. Now, interrogatory questions are questions that are mandated by the court that have to be answered. So there are 20 to 25 questions that the attorneys compile with their representative, and they present those to the opposing side. And those questions have to be answered under penalty of perjury. So it's just like answering in court. So let's imagine that we're just a group of pastors sitting around a table, and on the other side of the table, we're observing, and Kevin Ezell is on one side and Will McRaney is on the other side. And we're observing as they're asking each other questions about the facts of this case, what's going on, or what needs to be asked to determine the actual facts of the case. Let's start with Bert. What kind of questions would you ask, Bert, or at least one? Give me one of the questions you'd like to hear from one side or the other.
I think I would like to hear from Kevin Ezell. Who authorized you to make the statements that have been made in court that the North American Mission Board has a hierarchy of they are over or in control of state convention and leaders? Who was it that gave you that authority to make those statements?
And what you're referring to are court documents.
Right.
Court documents that have established that. Jim, any follow-up that you would have insight into that question?
Well, what would make you think such a thought? That's really comes down to, where does that thought come from? And can you explain your reasoning for having the lawyers or whatever go forward with that argument? I understand the lawyers are trying to find ways to scuttle any further motion forward. Was it just a lawyer? How is that a concept that was put forth in the name of North American Mission Board, in the name of Southern Baptist, without somebody raising a red flag saying, yeah, that might be a tactic before the court that could get us out of going further? But who would approve such a thought to be utilized in court documents that then could, set a precedent that could impact 50,000, 40,000 churches, pastors, deacons, elders, music ministers, entities of Southern Baptist?
And let me ask both of you another question. Now, we're still observing this conversation, but let me ask you another question. If that's done, and let's say it's legalese. This is the lawyers working, trying to do the best they can for their client. Their interest is not ultimate truth. Their interest is vindication for their client, right?
Correct.
So if they present to the North American Mission Board, whoever at that time is doing the representing of them, this idea that we need to state that we are a supporting organization of the Baptist Convention of Maryland, Delaware, which is where McRaney was serving at the time. Who is responsible for agreeing to that? Is it more important that they agree to the lawyer's strategy for their client, or is it more important that they stand righteous and holy before God in telling the truth?
I think the convention spoke about that concerning the the investigation into sexual allegations when it's put before the people that are the Southern Baptist Convention. The convention people, the body elect, voted overwhelmingly to say, hey, we don't want legalese, we don't want lawyerese, we want to see the truth come out, because this is a big deal. Money, but I'm gonna have strong feelings too about truth and the impact of money and the way it hurts people and helps people and promotes the gospel, or is missing the opportunity to do that. So I think the convention already spoke.
I would want to know from Kevin Ezell, what does Will McRaney know that would cause you to abandon NAMB counsel as your primary counsel and go out and hire the 7th largest law firm in the US that your own in-house counsel can't cover?
Right.
What is it that needs that grand of legal counsel? What has Will McRaney done to you or told you or threatened you with that would cause NAMB to go out and get this high-powered legal practice to represent them?
Yeah, and just to clarify real quickly, Butler and Snow is the law firm. Their office there in Jackson, Mississippi is the one that's representing them, although they have other locations. But they are the largest, 7th largest in the United States. And this is on top of the in-house legal counsel that North American Mission Board already has in full-time employment, full benefits and everything else. And so I think that's a very valid question. I'm not sure how to pose that question if I was asking that question, but
I'd ask it like that if it was one of those that they had to answer truthfully. Just what does Will McRaney know that has you so scared that you need the legal counsel like that your in-house guys can't do?
That you're going to spend millions of dollars on additional legal counsel.
Yeah, because it's definitely going to be hundreds of thousands of dollars already, and going years, millions of dollars.
Right,
No
it's
doubt.
over 5 years now.
Yeah, there's no doubt that's millions and millions of dollars there at this point. You just look up what it costs and anything. But look, I think that what Bert said was really powerful. Could go beyond that. Think about it. If this is a frivolous lawsuit and there's no merit, and all that happened was Will got fired by the Maryland group, why so much gunpowder? Just just let it play out. Sarah Palin couldn't even get a libel suit against the New York Times, and she was a politician, and they said some pretty egregious things, and the court's like, this is not worth the time, it's not worth the effort. If all it was that Ezell got mad at McRaney, and McRaney got mad at Ezell and said, I don't like you and you're a liar, you like the elf, you sit on a throne of lies, and there's just disagreement, and you walked away and he's fired. Why so much threatening? Why so much firepower? Where does this, how do you justify that with the idea I didn't do anything? There's nothing to see here.
I have to concur with you, Jim. What is it that you are hiding? What is it that you are hiding that you have continued to delay, now to have been defeated 4 or 5 times in court from court actions, both at the district court in Mississippi, then twice U.S. 5th Circuit Court, Supreme Court of all things, take the Southern Baptists to the Supreme Court, and then, this summary decision that they tried to get to kind of shut it all down, and that failed as well. And so now they are in the discovery process. So I agree. Okay, let's go back to our table. What other kinds of questions do you think McRaney ought to ask, or NAMB ought to ask of McRaney?
I want to know, like, what made McRaney, what makes you think that there was any nefarious activity going on behind the scenes? Why are you accusing us of this? What evidence do you have? Where do you think this began? I mean, you were fine. You got fired. You walked away. Nothing was going on. Was it after we contacted you? I don't get what that part was too. Why did NAMB contact McRaney years afterwards? Like, what was were you minding your business, McRaney?
Well, no. He had, by that time, he had begun raising what had happened, trying to raise awareness, and said, this is what they did. Here, I have the documentation. Here's the
Okay.
emails. Here's the letters. I attempted to make contact with them 6 different times, and I don't remember the exact numbers, but multiple times. And I had this conversation. I documented it here. This is what was said. I've attempted to reconcile. Ezell has refused to meet with me over and over. One time he thought he had a meeting. In fact, Randy Adams has testified to this. They thought they had a meeting worked out, and Ezell was going to come, and Will was hoping that they could reconcile everything and move on. This was years ago now, and Randy came to be kind of a witness with Will as well. And they got there, and Ezell wasn't present. He didn't come. He sent a couple of other people, trustee, chairman, if I remember right. I don't remember exactly, but a couple of other people. And when they began talking, one of the first things they said was, you need to understand, we don't have the authority to make any decisions in this case. They were just trying to make it go away, and Ezell refused to move forward and do anything about it. So he was presenting his case already through Facebook Live, other ways. And so the North American Mission Board then had their attorneys contact him. And I don't know that I've ever heard the word that, yeah, that's what I was going to say. I don't know that I've ever heard the word cease and desist, but that would be my guess. It was something of that sort. And then he sought out counsel, is my understanding, from some other mentors and people that he highly respected, and eventually decided after 17 months, if I remember right, that he went ahead and filed the suit to go ahead and, hey, look, let's get this resolved, not knowing that more than 5 years later, it still would not be resolved because NAMB kept putting it off. So there's probably more than what we need to know. So I'm sorry, Jim, I interrupted you.
That's typical of any lawsuit like this. When someone's pushing back and they're not willing to settle or resolve it, the one they play defense, and defense is the stall game. You know, just the Georgetown, sit back behind the 5-second line, move in, and just let the clock run out. That's
and remember, McRaney, you know, when he finally filed the lawsuit, he did that with a kind of a one horse pony attorney. And I don't know the fellow, but he's a nice guy, but he practices there in Mississippi, has been a friend, but it's not a big law firm. I mean, it's basically just him. And so here McRaney is personally out of his own pocket paying this attorney, and admittedly, he's not probably as high $1 an hour attorney, but it's probably $250, $300 an hour, you know, for this kind of thing. And he's paying it out of his own pocket, while you and me are paying for these other high-powered attorneys at Butler's.
He's going to have the whole convention. Yeah.
I would have 2 questions, and I would ask 2 questions because just like at press conferences with, you know, the president, every reporter has to ask 4 or 5 questions in one to get
have a follow-up. Okay. Who are you asking the question of, NAMB or McRaney?
McRaney.
Okay.
The first one would be to both of them, in all fairness. The first question would be, do you have hard evidence that the other one has had any illegal activity? If they have to answer it. Now, I mean illegal.
Right.
Kind of at the upriver. Yeah. And then the other question that would be to Will McRaney, if Ezell stepped down, would that be the end of all of this issue? Would it all go away with his absence? Or would there still be things going on at NAMB that you're aware of that would necessitate these court proceedings going forward?
That's good.
Jim, what do you think in response to his questions proposed?
That gets down to the nitty gritty of what is going on, because I you know, supposedly NAMB has said, or I don't know who said this, the lawyers, that there was a number of millions of dollars thrown out there to settle on McRaney as if he's just going for a money grab. And McRaney has said very clearly, we have not asked for any money.
Right.
That's not my goal necessarily. That's good. Obviously he has to pay for lawyers and stuff, but he wasn't just making false accusations and trying to get a money train going.
Well, and McRaney has been so forthright. Yeah, he's been so forthright. He's put, I mean, you go to his website, and there are other places too, but you go to his website, and almost everything that he's talked about is documented and is published. There are emails that are published there. And you can look at the very court documents. In fact, one of the things, we were talking about this a minute ago, but let me read this. I brought this so I could read it. One of the things that the attorneys for the North American Mission Board have put forth in written documents, they claim that the North American Mission Board has the right to exercise authority over the state conventions. Okay. Now, legally, if that were the case, that NAMB can exercise authority over a state convention, why can't they exercise authority over a local church or over an association or over some other entity within the Southern Baptist Convention? Speaking of, there's not but 12 entities, even though in their Supreme Court documents, they put that he was employed by an entity, but he wasn't. He was employed by a state convention, and state conventions are not Southern Baptist entities. They are entities unto themselves.
Well, and
but
also
anyway,
they answer to the trustees of the state. They're elected by the state convention.
Exactly. They're not connected. They're totally autonomous. So the question is, if they feel like they can remove employees, Baptist Convention of Maryland, Delaware, removing McRaney, if NAMB has the authority over them to remove people from state conventions, from their positions, then that would be in a direct claim in opposition to Article 4 of the SBC Constitution. Here's what that article says. So tell me how this reads to you. Does this give them the authority that they are stating and have stated in these court documents? Article 4 is labeled authority, and it says this: while independent and sovereign in its own sphere, the convention does not claim and will never attempt to exercise any authority over any other Baptist body, whether church, auxiliary organizations, associations, or convention. Bert, does that give them the authority?
Doesn't sound like it.
How about it, Jim? Are you voting with them or against them?
No, I mean, they don't have the right to do that, and everything they argue about and the way they behave. If that didn't happen, if that was not something that happened, why would that have been presented as a reason why it was okay? If I didn't kill her, but had I killed her, I would have done. I had the right to kill her, and I would have done it this way. I mean, it's crazy.
Well, and part of what was said was, well, we didn't actually do this, but we have the authority to do this.
Correct. So we're covering both bases on that. Whichever way you want to come at us, we're covered either way you want to go, because we're right, you're wrong. End of conversation. Make clear as slate. And that goes back to, I think, going to the question I'd asked too, Bert and Bobby. I would want to know, hey, Kevin, if you were offered a golden parachute, $1 million, maybe more than $1 million, who knows what his number is, right?
I mean, he already makes a pretty substantial amount. They're telling us.
Yeah, but you make it every year.
We can't get the amount. Yeah,
but
that's what he's making every year. Right.
So you're getting it one-time payment. So we know what that number is going to be, right? Who cares what he makes? Okay.
Right.
We care in a sense, but we don't care. It's not, it is what it is. But what would be that number? And if we hit that number, would you walk away? And all this stuff goes away. All the legal thing shuts down. The convention is back to even keel. Would you walk away for $1 million, $2 million, $3 million, whatever that number is?
So if they bought him out, would he walk away? Yeah. My guess, now understand, I'm not a lawyer. You two guys are not lawyers. We're speaking totally as ministers, Southern Baptist ministers. But my guess is, whether Ezell walks away or not, the issues that have been brought to bear are not just reflective on him. He is a main strike point. He is a lightning rod because of the behavior and because of the things that he has done, seeking out other people, putting targets on people, and posting Will's picture in the foyer of NAMB, and calling ahead, trying to get people not to hire certain people that he doesn't like, and all those kind of things.
Right.
Even with him gone, there's enough other people that have signed on the dotted line.
if there had been already established agreements, we're going to support the evangelism director for 5 years at 50 grand or 25 grand. You have to support the other part. And they have already budgeted that in their 5-year plan, as you would with a business or any group. And then NAMB said, oh, we're going to pull funding from that guy, from this gal, from this position, and already established church plans that you had made agreements to. You feel loyal to them as a state convention, as a director of missions, and you have to make a decision between axing Will because he didn't get along with Kevin and they hadn't worked things out yet, and just circumventing that need to bring Will along or have that collision where it comes out in the open and they discuss it, and the reasons for why what NAMB is doing comes out clearly, and either Will have to join in or the trustees say, Will, you need to join in, or we need to part way, Will, or we need a different partnership now. And that never happens. Like, it just circumvented what I suspect, that there should have been greater discussion. Will may have been let go anyway, but it was like precision strike, take people out. You don't agree with me, then I'm going to make you agree with me in 10 seconds. You know, it's not really an offer. I'm going to get off with it. We'll say, I'll make you an offer you can't refuse. And that's my concern, is that if it's like a mafia style mentality, we take you out within the Christian organization.
And that is kind of what we're hearing from former staff at the North American Mission Board, people who were in the room
right
when individuals were targeted. I mean, literally, we're meeting together. We've got to figure out how to take this person out. I mean, that was the topic of discussion. And of course, those people are keeping themselves quiet. They've kind of been a whistleblower at this point, but they realize they quickly become a target and their whole life gets destroyed. And we have evidence of a number of people across our Southern Baptist Convention who've been faithful servants for decades, whose lives have just been literally upended and destroyed because of what's happened and the way it's taken place. So we're looking at the interrogatory questions, but as if we're sitting at the table and Kevin Ezell and Will McRaney are sitting across from each other. What other questions might you ask?
I would ask this just because I'm a pastor. I'm not a lawyer, I'm a pastor. Is there anything that the two of you could do or say to reconcile this relationship? Because truth be told, to stand before the Supreme Court or anything else, yes, that would be intimidating. It's nothing like the fact that these two men are going to have to stand before God one day and both give an account of their lives and how they have stewarded things, and this relationship being one of them. And trust me, this is an issue that's not going to go away before eternity. This is an issue that is going to have to be recounted before Jesus one day. Is there anything that can bring reconciliation?
We got to go further too, Bert. It's not just this relationship, because if it's simply an apology based upon same old, versus saying what has happened to the institutional trust that represents Christ's global command to unify his body as much as possible.
Well, look, guys, let's wrap up. The next two steps that we already know are in place is evaluate the responses that we've gotten from those questions that will be posed, and then the depositions. We're going to wrap it up here, and we're going to come back in just a moment and talk a little bit more about those depositions, who we would ask. And I'm also going to give every person who is a Southern Baptist, I'm going to give you 6 questions that you ought to ask your state's trustee to the North American Mission Board. These are questions that every Southern Baptist ought to be asking and saying, look, I want to have an answer from my trustee about this question. Yep. Thank you guys for joining today. The discussion, we're going to wrap up our discussion and we'll finish up with who we think needs to be spoken to get testimony in the facts of this case.